So I've got like and notice it's all like black, white, gray. It's not like a crazy color, no pictures. Absolutely. So I've got just a quick introduction to who you are. So I'm an engineering student. I'm a Master of Public Health student.
Resume, not CV.
This is resume, right? Resume should just be one page. And they don't have to include all of your work experience. Just the work experience that's relevant. I made him this when he was applying for an internship. So I've got contact information up here, phone number, email, and then like where you live. Some professional summary. Education, as you can see, education's like super small. I didn't put GPA, I didn't put classes that he took, that sort of thing, because it's a resume. You're keeping it short and sweet. Got some skills over here. And then he has a lot of certifications all related to the military, which you probably do too. So then he has multiple work experiences, including Burger King, but Burger King was not relevant to what the internship he was looking for. So I've got his United States Army. I've got his team leader position, heavy equipment operator, because he's going for an engineering internship. So all three of those were kind of like that. What's up, Jolene? Scroll down.
Yeah.
More?
Like certifications.
Right.
Okay. So if you've been, because I've had a lot of certifications in my past.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them have lapsed, some of them have done this, but I was hazmat qualified.
Right.
Did you put that down?
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though it's not current.
That's okay. I've in the past put down like Red Cross lifeguard certification. That my certification expired in 2018. I was literally using that certification on 2022 applications. Like you've earned it before, so just slap it in.
Well, that's one thing that I wasn't sure about is that you can use those certifications.
You can 100% use those certifications. It's not that you're lying about yourself, but you are showing the experience that you've had in the past, the certifications that you have, your education, you're bragging about yourself. So even if it's not current, definitely put it down there. That shows that you have a background in that and that you were an expert in that, at least at one point. That's what they want to see. Oh, yeah, of course. Like on JKO or something like that. You would have to go up to the vet center on the 3rd floor of the student union building. They're really helpful. And if you know, like, oh, I have some kind of medical certificate, I don't remember what's called, just Google it. They're not going to look it up, So that's what Randy was like, oh, I have a CPR certification through the military. I can't remember what it was called. I just Googled it, combat lifesaver course. Bam. And they're not going to look up on JKO who has this lifesaver course. So yeah. Of course. Does anyone have any questions about a resume or want to look at the CV?
What's a CV?
I'll show you real quick. So CV, curriculum curriculum vitae. I don't know if that is how you pronounce it, but it's more about your education and your background, like a complete background. So
what's a job that you would want to provide a CV compared to a resume?
A teaching position at ISU. When I applied for this position, it's in academia, so I did a CV. When I applied for the master's program at USU, I used a CV. I wanted to show them my educational background, my academic experience, and I wanted to give them a way to really get to know me. A CV is like 3 or more pages long. I'll show you my CV. I haven't updated it in a minute, but that's okay. So CV, what's most important is your academics. So I have my academic right on the first page. I've got my honors and scholarships on one side. I've got my coursework of interest on the other, and I've got my GPA. Have a professional summary. So when you're applying for a job, whether you're doing a resume or whether you're doing a CV, You need to take your professional summary and cater it towards the job you're applying for. So say I'm applying for an engineering internship. I would adjust my professional summary and talk a little bit more about how I have advanced mathematics skills, how I can run processes like Jamovi because I have a statistical background. I wouldn't really talk about how I excel in research and teaching opportunities that demand proactive leadership, that sort of thing. I would cater it a little bit more towards the job I want to get. What's up, Jolene?
When you turn in CVs, do you still have a cover letter?
It depends. So only turn in what they ask for. If they say, submit your resume, just submit your resume, or a CV if it's like an academic sort of job. But if they say you need a cover letter, 3 references, and a CV, you're going to submit your CV or resume, you're going to submit your cover letter, and you're going to submit your references page, all 3 separate documents.
I was just wondering, because you got your professional summary.
Right. I love a good professional summary. The resume that he showed you on Monday, he didn't have much of a professional summary. This is more like advanced, like you're looking, like if you don't have a professional summary, that's great. If you want to work at Chick-fil-A or you want to be a CNA, that sort of thing. But if you're looking to get into a career in this field, you're looking for something that if it requires a bachelor's degree or requires a master's degree, use a resume or CV with a professional summary and emphasize your education. And I would highly recommend, if you're going to go for a job that requires a bachelor's or a master's, to use a CV instead of a resume. And I can post my CV on Moodle. I just have to update my experience because I haven't put in my teaching yet. I just have all this stuff. So, any other questions before we get to the lecture? Right, and then when I go through everyone's resume extra credits, I'm going to give a lot of really specific feedback. So,
I have a question about it.
yes.
I edited my resume,
Mhm.
the job that I have now. I just edited it and submitted it like 19 days ago.
Mhm.
And then trying to move my name into that
Right.
application. And then I tried to go and edit it, but now it's saying it's late.
Well, yeah, because it closed the day after. You can go ahead and just email it to me, and then I'll give you feedback based on your most updated one. Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay. So today is a very, very important lecture, making sure my mic is on, turning up the classroom volume. This is, it may have been a smaller in pages chapter, but it has a lot of information in it that is super important, especially for assignment 2. So today we are going to be splitting the day into 2. So we're going to talk about the chapter 6 lecture, and then we're going to talk about assignment 2 very thoroughly. If you have looked at the assignment 2 directions, the objectives, the rubric, that sort of thing before, I slightly altered it to match more of what was in the textbook. So I'm going to go over that too, but it hasn't changed a lot, just changed some wording to reflect what was in the textbook so that you're not thinking to yourself, I don't know what this kind of thing is. She just talked about in class, but it's not in the textbook. What is a mission statement? A mission statement is bigger than a goal. If we are looking at an inverse pyramid, at the top, we have our mission statement. In the middle, we have our goal. And at the very bottom of the pyramid, we have a ton of objectives. So the purpose of objectives is to meet the goal. And the purpose of the goal is to bring about the mission statement. So this is the program summary, or the aim. It's a short narrative, which basically is just a sentence. I don't know why they said narrative in the textbook. It describes the purpose and the focus of the program and may reflect the philosophy behind it. So the main ideas behind it, the what are your beliefs, what are your values, that sort of thing. And then third, it helps guide planners in the development of the goal or goals and objectives. And I know I've said this before and I will say it a million times. I would highly recommend just sticking with 1 or 2 goals. The more goals you have, you're going to have to create objectives, a different set of objectives for every single one. Then it just starts getting complicated. Without a mission statement, goal, or objectives in a program, the program is going to lack direction. It's not going to be successful. And then when you reach the evaluation stage of your program, you won't be able to effectively evaluate the program because you don't know what your goals and objectives were in the first place. So we have an example today, and I was thinking a little bit about Jolene's project when I did this example. But today we are creating a program that is aimed at improving nutrition in school lunches and decreasing childhood food insecurity. So here's the example. You're creating a program aimed at decreasing childhood food insecurity. And then the mission statement is, the mission of this program is to decrease the prevalence of food insecurity for children in Utah. Goals. The goals are broad statements that encompass all of the expected outcomes of the program. So what is the goal for your program? So if we go and look at mission again, the mission was to decrease the prevalence of food insecurity for children in Utah. And notice how it doesn't say, it's not SMART, it's not measurable, because there's no numbers in here. It's not time bound. There's no year that needs to be completed by. So this is just a broad overall statement of your beliefs and values going into the project. So for the goal compared to the mission statement, the goal is to provide free breakfast and lunch to every school-age child, regardless of household income, by passing a state-level bill that gives all children in public school access to free meals. And your goal can be a lot shorter than this. This is just a very specific goal for a master's paper. So I don't expect you to have like a freaking paragraph for your goal. But let's look at the difference between the goal and the mission statement. The mission statement is, we want to decrease food insecurity. That's what's important to us. That's our aim, that's our objective, and that's part of our philosophy, that children should be able to access food. And then the goal is to provide access to free breakfast and lunch to every school-age child. That's the overall goal. And notice once again, the goal, it's not a SMART goal. The objectives are the ones that are SMART. So by SMART, I mean specific, measurable, achievable, that sort of thing. There's no time for this. So it's not like by 2025, I will do this. It's not saying who. So it's not saying who is in charge of doing this. This is just the overall goal. So the essential components for a goal is what is going to change. So the thing that's going to change is breakfast and lunch will not be free. Who will be affected, which is your priority population? Children will be affected. And then where will change occur? A state level bill that gives all children access to free school meals. I was talking to Abigail about this earlier, but your priority population does not have to be the same as your target audience. In this example, with my goal, my priority population is school-age children in Grand County, Utah. Or we'll just say Utah in general. And then who is my target audience? Who am I trying to reach? I'm trying to reach state legislators because they have the power to give children free school meals. So once again, the priority population and your target audience can be completely different based on your goal for the program. Now, how are they different from objectives? So goals provide overall direction for the program. They're general, they don't have a specific deadline, and they're not measured quantitatively. They're not measured with numbers. I'm not saying 50% of children will get access to free school meals. I'm not saying by 2025, there will be free school meals. So this is just an overall general direction for the program. Next are objectives. This is when things start to get a little tricky because there's a lot of different kinds of objectives. And if you remember from the textbook, there were 3 big ones that we talked about, and we'll talk about on the next slide. What is an objective? This is a very precise statement of the intended outcome. It's basically a benchmark that is bringing you closer towards your goal. So we have our goal, and then we have a bunch of objectives that are leading stepwise up until we reach the goal. And if you remember, we talked about goals versus objectives in a previous lecture, and you're welcome to go back and take a look at that if it's helpful. Well, what is the purpose of objectives? They're SMART. They're specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. They measure in measurable terms the specific change or action that will take place at a given point of time. So by date, so that's at a given point of time, the responsible party will do task. That is the formula we're using in this class. So we can measure this because if they don't do the task, we can measure, no, they didn't do it. Or if they do the task, we can measure, yes, they did it. So it's measurable. There are 3 types of objectives that we're going to talk about. The first is process. The second, your book calls them impact objectives, but they are also known as effect objectives. It just depends on what textbook you're using, who you're working with, that sort of thing. And then you have your outcome objectives. We're going to talk about process objectives first. These are the easiest. These are just the daily things that you're going to do to get your campaign off the ground. We've got our inputs, we've got our resources, and our implementation. So inputs could be money. Inputs could be, no, that's resources, money. Inputs could be volunteers. For my program, I had myself, like-minded volunteers, I had a Republican representative, and I had a representative from the American Heart Association. Those are all inputs. Resources, money. So how much money is going to be in the budget for things like social media campaigns, or how much money is going to be in the budget to develop flyers, or how are we going to secure enough funding to be able to push this through? So resources. And then implementation. So implementation of your idea. So here's an example of a process objective. By 2024, so we've got the date, social media campaigns will be launched on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook by myself and like-minded volunteers. So we have the date, by this date, the responsible party will do this. We'll launch the social media campaigns. So the input, myself and like-minded volunteers. The resources, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and those are all free to download. However, if you would like, you can do advertisements, which you would have to pay for. So you would have to get a monetary resource in order to pay for that. And then implementation, implementing the social media campaign. And you'll notice that, so I made all these objectives I made in like March of 2024. So you can see this is very short term. This is like 1 or 2 years. Then we have the impact or effect objectives, and there's 3 types of those. We've got learning, we've got behavioral, and we've got environmental. So learning would be an increase of knowledge, attitude, or skills related to the health problem in your population. So learning could be, by this date, the representatives will have a thorough knowledge of why having access to food for children is important. So that's a knowledge, that's an attitude, that's a skill. They will have this knowledge and information. So I have a question for all of you based on your health program plan, what could be an example of a learning objective? Yes, could you press your button, please? I'm recording for Terry.
For my program, it's to
Mhm.
implement more wellness events. So in
Okay.
wellness events, they can learn how to practice wellness.
Got it. Okay. So Ariel had a really good idea, having a wellness event where they learn how to practice wellness. So perhaps a learning objective could be by this time, this many students will have learned about this health issue or how to prevent this health issue or how to be well. So the next type is behavioral. We want to change a current behavior or adopt a new behavior in order to improve or enhance health. An example of this could be, let's think about Jolene's program again. She is doing nutrition in schools and she has an idea kind of related to my plate. So for behavioral, you could say, by this date, the parents of children 50% of the parents of children will pack lunches that meet my plate standards. So that is a behavior, changing the behavior of the parents. Or you could have that if you're doing like high schoolers who pack their own lunches, change the behavior of the high schoolers. So they're packing lunches that meet the my plate or the my pyramid or the my tray standards. So thinking about your programs, and this is going to be on the quiz today. So if you want to run one by me right now, I would say it would be a very, very prudent and wise idea of you. What is an example of a behavioral objective, changing a behavior for your program plan? Can you press your button, please?
Limiting the amount of screen time children spend on screens throughout the week.
Okay, so who's limiting the screen time?
So that would help the parents limiting their children's screen time throughout the week.
Right, and then what date do you want to have this by?
Probably put it out like 2 weeks.
Okay,
So short term. Like,
that's very short term, yes.
well, I mean, you want to reach it, but I don't know how to turn that from a short term to a long term.
Right. Yeah, so it would be like a more short-term objective would say by December of 2024, parents who have learned about your My Tray program will limit their children's screen time to 50% less than what it was before. And then a more long-term or outcome objective could be like by 2028, the average screen time in the state of Idaho for children has gone down by 50%. Does that make sense how it's different?
Yeah, because I've been struggling. This is a lot to read.
It's very dense information. I feel like the book doesn't do a good job of explaining it in ways that are easy to understand. So going on, well, does anyone else have an example of a behavioral objective they want to toss out there?
By May 2025,
Mhm.
I don't know how to word this.
That's okay. Just let it flow.
Less than half of high schoolers will leave the campus for lunch to go get fast food.
Love it. That's perfect. That's perfect. So it's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. She said by this date, the party or the high schoolers, and then measurable will be leaving school 50% less. Is that correct? Okay, perfect. So that's changing their behavior. The high schoolers will no longer be leaving the school. Well, 50% of them anyways. Oh, the last one is environmental. So this isn't just the physical environmental, like the river or the trees or the buildings around you. It's also maybe the social environment. So how do people feel about abortions? How do people feel about guns? How do people feel about religion? So that could be environment too. And then political environment. So politically, I would say that Idaho is more of a red conservative religious state. So that would be more of like a political environment. So any type of environment doesn't have to be tangible. You don't have to touch something for it to be an environment. So an example of an environmental objective could be by December of 2024, school lunches will be 75% less expensive in the following communities, and then list the following communities. So this is environmental because I'm changing the economic environment. I'm saying by this date, these school meals will be less expensive. So that's changing the environment for parents. So then parents will be able to use that money for something else. That's changing the economic environment. So for you all, what is an example of an environmental objective for your program? And I don't want to pick on anyone, but Emma's program would be perfect for environmental changes. So if you don't think of anything, I'm going to pop something off about your program. So what is confusing to you about an environmental objective?
Like, would that just be, so I'm doing the state of Idaho.
You're doing the state of Idaho, right? And water safety, right? Okay.
Would that just be like something like by March or by the end of the school year?
Mhm.
If it's like an Idaho school year, like Idaho high school students will. So I was wanting to do like a program that was implemented into the school year.
Mm-hmm. Right. So Emma was talking about implementing a program in the school year for students, probably about improving water safety, right? So let's actually do an example of learning, behavioral, and environmental. So all three of them. Learning objective. By this date, students will have learned the importance of water safety because they attended like these 4 programs. By this date, high school students, let's say 20% more high school students when going whitewater rafting will wear life vests. So that's behavior, they're changing their behavior. And then for environmental, let's say in 2 years, so in 2 school years from now, the social environment of the school has changed. So by 2025, it will be socially normalized and socially acceptable for high school students to wear life vests at all sorts of events involving water. So they won't be made fun of for wearing their vest, something like that. So it's changing the social environment. Does that make sense? Okay. Anybody else have an idea? Any of these 3? If they just want to get an idea, because it is going to be on your quiz. Yes,
So I'm going
Jolene.
back to the water safety one.
You hit your button, please. You're fine.
I'm going back to the water safety.
Mhm.
Now, when you go places that are near bodies of water, they actually have life jackets.
That's environmental. Mhm.
That's also kind of behavioral too, isn't it?
Well, not necessarily, because there are water jackets that are there for the community, but is the community putting them on? Are they adopting that behavior? So the reason that this is environmental is because it's changing the physical and social environment. So physically, there are now life jackets there, and socially, they're trying to make it more acceptable to wear the life jackets and for people to want to do it more. Just like how skincare has become a huge thing on TikTok in the past year or 2, and now more people are wearing sunscreen daily. So that would be environmental.
So if you're looking at like the environmental aspect of things, it's more like socially like accepted in the community. If you're looking at
Right. So there's multiple kinds of environments. You could change the economic environment. You can make life vests free for everyone. You could change the physical environment, have life vests available at every river, like you said. Social environment, make life vests more socially acceptable. Political environment, come out with policies making it illegal for children under, say, the age of 12 to not wear a life jacket on certain rivers. So making that politically. So environment, again, does not have to be tangible. So it can also be the social, it can be the economic. So you don't have to be able to touch it for it to be environment. Joshua, I saw your lips moving, but your mic was muted. Did you have something you wanted to say?
Well, I guess I did. I was just thinking out loud. Um, literally. So would you say like for environmental, that'd be like, say creating more gym facilities and communities and creating more grocery outlet stores for food desert regions and more rural communities to
Mhm.
facilitate like healthy eating and proper nutrition and stuff like that.
That is perfect. So Joshua had an amazing example. That was like 4 environmental objectives in one. So adding grocery stores, adding gyms and facilities, those are all environmental. If we want to do behavioral, more people are attending these facilities. And if we want to do more learning, people are learning why it's important to exercise. So people learning it's important to exercise, that's a learning objective. And then behavioral, then they go and exercise more. That's behavioral. And then environmental would be building more exercise places or taking already existing exercise places and making them like government subsidized so that they're cheaper for people in the community. So that would be an economic environment and a physical environment because you're building new exercise facilities, but you're making them more economically accessible. So that was a great example, Joshua. Thank you. Yes, Abigail.
Correct me if I am wrong, the environmental is we are changing things physically or socially.
Right.
And I think this is the
Mhm.
importance of a needs assessment here. We can change things environmentally all we want.
Right.
Until behaviorally this individual wants to make that change,
Mhm.
nothing is gonna happen.
Exactly. So Abigail brought up a really good point. You can change things in the environment all you want. You can build new gyms and facilities. You can make gyms and facilities government subsidized so people under the poverty line can go to the gym for free, that sort of thing. But that's not really going to change the health issue until you've been able to change people's behaviors and then people's learning. So learning and behavioral is more about your priority population and / or your target audience. And environmental is changing the environment around them, whether it be physical, economic, social, that sort of thing. So giving people the tools to be able to create change. I have an example right here. I said by March 2025, the school lunch amendments bill will pass by a majority vote of each legislative house. Does anyone have an idea whether that's learning, behavioral, or environmental? This one's a little tricky. Jillian, I can see you thinking.
Well, I think that'd be more environmental,
You got it. Why is it environmental?
because you're putting something in place that says you have to do this. So
Mhm.
you're not trying to educate people.
Right? Exactly.
You're not trying to, well, I mean, you are changing the behavior, but
Mhm.
it's through enforcement.
Right. So you're not teaching them about the importance of school lunches. You're not changing their behavior and having them pack better foods in the school lunches. This is environmental. We're changing the political environment by passing this bill. So last is the outcome. This is way off into the future. This is where do you want your priority population to be health-wise after the completion of your program, or if it's a continuing program, after the program is fully implemented. I'm going to say it in some different words. The outcome objective is where do you want your priority population to be after your program is fully implemented or completed. So when our food insecurity free school meals program has been fully implemented and realized, So 2030, free school meals will have reduced rates of food insecurity for Utah households with children from 14.8% to 10% or less. This is very, very specific. This is where I want my priority population to be in 2030. I want to decrease food insecurity by 4.8% by the end of my program. And as you can see, this is tying directly back to my goal and my mission statement. My mission statement, decrease food insecurity. Goal, provide free breakfast and lunch. And then overall, at the very end, I want to decrease food. That better not be a fire alarm. I swear, because we are going to go over assignment 2 today. Assignment 2. Well, just ignore that. You know, if we need to evacuate, I'm sure someone will come and get us. Metal detector, right? Maybe it's a metal detector. Exactly. Someone has a lot of extra jewelry. It's going to be me tonight because I'm getting a piercing tonight, which is not related to the lecture. This is recorded. Sorry, Terry. So assignment 2, details. This is about your mission statement, your goals, and objectives. Please don't have more than one goal, but you can if you want to. You follow the outline in Moodle. It's a very, very specific outline. Hopefully it will keep you on track. Times New Roman 12 point font, including your page numbers. Most people have been able to get their headings in Times New Roman 12, but it will automatically be Arial 11 unless you actually do so. I make that mistake all the time. Should be 2 or more pages. Typical APA 7 formatting, so that means you have your title page, and then on the first page of your actual, well, no, wait, you're not doing title page for this one, sorry. So for the first page, have the title of your work in bold at the top of your paper, if that makes sense. So just like the APA 7 student sample paper, the reason we're not doing a title page is because all of these assignments are going to build up together into one big work at the end of the semester. And I've decided that is going to be your final exam. So no final exam. There will be a midterm, but there's no final exam. It's going to be more of a final project. So you're working on your final project the whole class. And then final exam will be instead like a presentation on what you've learned. So just throwing that out there, no final exam. So you don't need a title page. You already did a title page. You don't need a reference page unless you are citing specific data and prior research. So if we go ahead and look at my objectives over here, I didn't cite a source for either of these. I did cite a source for this, but it was too long to fit into the box and didn't look pretty. But I would cite a source for this because I'm specifically stating that the current food insecurity is 14.8%. So that is a statistic that I did not pull from my brain. I need to cite it. And then you need 8 or more objectives, which may seem like a lot at first, but honestly, like whoever was answering before came up with objectives just off the top of your head in 2 seconds. So where the real work is going to come in is taking those objectives and really tailoring them to your program, editing them. And you are more than welcome to set up a Zoom meeting with me, to come talk to me during your extra time after class, and we can start making some objectives together if you're getting a little lost or confused. This is the outline. So as you can see, you've got your title bolded center at the top of the page, but you don't need a title page. Ignore the page numbers up there, 3 and 4. You have your introduction, so 2 to 4 paragraphs. So you can pull, and this is a big hint, you can take your introduction straight from your needs assessment. I'll say that again. You can straight up plagiarize yourself, copy your needs assessment, and put it in the introduction. So you're describing your health problem, you're describing your priority population, and you're giving an overview of what you learned from your needs assessment. Feel free to plagiarize yourself. And yeah, So the mission is just one paragraph. So paragraph is between 4 to 6 sentences. So state and describe your reason for choosing your mission statement. Then I have what a mission statement is according to the textbook. And if you're a little confused, just reread this PowerPoint, and I have a couple different ways to describe it earlier on. So you're stating your mission statement. This is the overall mission. These are my values. These are my beliefs going into this program. And then why? And then I'll have 3 or 4 sentences saying why I chose this mission statement. Yes.
Okay, so introduction.
Right.
mission Statement.
Mhm.
Should those just be like one sentence or a paragraph?
So I have,
It does say paragraph.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
that's okay. 2 to 4 paragraphs, 1 paragraph. Yeah, and you can take these 2 paragraphs, you can like copy a paragraph about your health problem, copy a paragraph about your priority population from what you've submitted through your needs assessment, and then the 3rd paragraph, give an overview of what you learned. So that's okay. So next, oh yes, Abigail.
This is new for me. I have never written more than one introduction paragraph.
Yeah,
So you've got them listed out, your health problem,
Mhm.
priority population,
Right.
overview. Are those 1, 2, 3 paragraphs?
it could be 3 paragraphs, it could be 2, it could be 4, it could be 5. You, as long as you have at least 2 paragraphs, you are fine. But typically in either a health program plan or a health communication plan, your introduction is going to be at least a full page. So what is the purpose of the introduction? The introduction is saying, what are you going to tell the reader throughout the rest of the paper? When you are taking your work and you are giving it to stakeholders, giving it to people who may fund your project, they're going to say, wow, this is 12 to 45 pages long. I'm not reading all this. I'm just going to read the introduction. It's kind of like an abstract in an academic article where it just summarizes all the important stuff, what you're going, and then what you're going to do. So that's why the introduction is a little longer, and why it's longer in these health communication campaigns and health program plans. So you want to have something that thoroughly describes the problem, the population, what you're going to do about it, so that they can just read that and decide, okay, I want to go further with this, or no, I'm not interested. So introduction is very important. And then the mission statement, and then goals and objectives. And you are totally fine to have your goals and objectives be in bullet points like this. It makes it a lot easier for people to read when they're in bullet points. So you state your goal here. So going back, our goal was free school meals for children in Utah, goals. And then we have our process objectives. So if we take a look back and remember, our process objectives are the daily tasks and plans that are saying, what are the little things that we're going to do leading up to implementing our program? And then you're going to have effect/impact objectives. So those are these right here, our learning, our behavioral, environmental. You're going to do at least one learning objective, at least one behavioral objective, and at least one environmental objective. So if you get this question completely right on your quiz, there you go. You already have your 3 objectives. You don't need to do any more for this section unless you want to put more. And then outcome objectives. You only need to have 2 outcome objectives. So let's take a look at my outcome objective. By this date in the far future, this is where I want my priority population to be health-wise. Decrease food insecurity from this to this. And then I should have cited a source, but just didn't look pretty. So you just need 2 of those. So that's the project outline. Does anyone have any questions about the outline so far? Okay.
For
What's up, Josh?
the part where if you look at like your 3rd bold header, goals and objectives,
Right.
what will be like, is the objectives in that part gonna be like encompassing of like every objective? I don't think I'm following that part. like where you have goals and objective there. You said, please follow this format. Objectives should be divided into categories and the formula.
Oh, I think I understand what you're saying, but cut me off if I'm wrong. So you're going to put your process objectives into categories. So what does this mean? For example, social media campaigns could be a category. And in my social media campaigns category, let's say I have two process objectives. So my first process objective is to develop social media materials. And my second process objective is to launch these social media materials. So it's just taking your objectives and putting them into categories, just like how we were looking at the CV and the resume earlier, and I had skills labeled in different sections. So I had like soft skills, I had computer skills, and then putting skills underneath that. So it's just a way to categorize your objectives so you can keep track of them. Is that what you were talking about?
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Moving on to the rubric. Sorry, it's a little long here. There's no rough draft for this assignment, but you are more than welcome to reach out for help or to get advice. This project is worth 20 points. It's 5 points less than your needs assessment, I believe, or maybe it was the same. Anyways, this is due on October 13th. So I believe October 13th is a Sunday. And if you get all these objectives right here correct on your quiz, you've already got that done. Your introduction, you've done your needs assessment, you've already got that done. So really all you need to do is a mission statement, get your goal and these objectives together, and then you're done. So hopefully this should be pretty easy to get together. Any questions about the rubric? Sweet. And then I'm so glad that we have time for the class discussion. So choose one topic and one quote or your summarized quote from either chapter 5 or chapter 6. Ariel, do you mind if we start with you?
So my point was, contrary to short steps of a mission statement, vision statements are what the program will look like in the future. And the quote that I picked, or I guess paraphrase, was that vision statements overlook 3 to 5 years' time, often asking the question, where will this program be in 4 years? When creating a vision statement, it is important to consider the interventions and issues related to the program and how they might help individuals in the future. And it was on page 131. I just thought it was important to understand the difference between a mission statement and what a vision statement was.
Right. And we're not doing vision statements in this class. Honestly, I feel like that's a little bit overkill. So it would be vision statement, and then underneath that, mission statement, underneath that, goal, and underneath that, objectives. I feel like a vision statement, if you have a good mission statement, you really don't need one, but the textbook is talking about it. So thank you for bringing it up, but you're not going to use that. Does anyone have any comments about Ariel's quote and her ideas about vision statements? All right, Morningstar. Either chapter 5 or chapter 6. If you could press your button, please. Thank you.
I wrote, when writing goals and objectives for a health program, a Healthy People 2023, a framework of 10 years goals and objectives help identify the relationship between personal behaviors and health status. With 10 years in advance, it's a great resource for planners throughout the United States. I don't know, just thought it was a good resource for if you wanted to see how they set their goals and objectives.
Absolutely. That is a fantastic resource. So we've got our goals of Healthy People 2030. And if you could say that, let's just say the goal is to have healthier people in 2030. And let's say the outcome objectives are decrease poverty by this much, improve women's rights by this much, decrease heart disease by this much. Those could be your effect objectives. Anyone have anything to say about Healthy People 2030? All right, Amanda?
Okay, sorry.
You're good.
I'm trying to move my thing over, it's not working. Okay. So I just wrote, when developing objectives, you need to use the SMART acronym to make sure that they are well-rounded. The SMART acronym stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-sensitive. Following these guidelines when developing an objective, make sure you are giving attention to all the pieces of information that will make your objective thorough and convincing to stakeholders to get behind.
That's a really, really good one. Anyone have anything to add about SMART objectives? It's a fantastic topic. Jolene?
I added that using the SMART helps keep program objectives from being overly complicated and accountable with favorable results of the health promotion programs. But yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So Jolene was saying that having SMART objectives makes it so that you're not putting too much into one objective. And is that what you're basically saying, Jolene?
Yeah, I started reading it. I was like, yeah.
That's okay. Because yes, it can get overwhelming if you're putting, okay, I want to do this, 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 and this by this date. Okay, then make those into 4 different objectives, 1 for each. Joshua?
Okay, mine was from chapter 5.
Okay.
So for successful planning interventions, the data collected must be reliable and high quality. It is vital because it facilitates decision making and successful implementation. Allocation of resources and budgeting would also need to be properly done, hence the emphasis on accurate quality data collection methods.
That's a fantastic
And
quote.
no, Michael, sorry, I went off of you. Michael was planners need to strive to collect data under the best conditions that will produce reliable data, and that was on page 105.
Well, your own thoughts kind of sound like the textbook, so really good job. I was like, when you said, oh, that was just my quote, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, did you write the textbook? Emma?
So mine was also in chapter 5.
Mhm.
And it was that pilot testing helps planners find and fix potential problems early, which will decrease the risk of failure when the program starts. And by catching these problems earlier, planners can refine their programs and make them more effective and tailored to the needs of their population. And then the direct quote was, in other words, pilot testing can be a thought of as a dress rehearsal for planners. The purpose of using pilot testing is to identify, if necessary, correct any problems before implementation within the priority population. So when I was reading that, I kind of thought of it as like you're finding deeper insights into any issues of your program and to kind of test run it to see what's realistic and what's not.
Right. That is a fantastic quote. Super important because we've talked about before implementing your plan in the fullest. So let's say before giving free school meals to children across the entire state of Utah, we want to maybe focus on like 4 rural schools that we've randomly selected and try out this new program, then gather data. Is this working? Is this not working? Is there a better way that we can do this? What's the students' feedback on these meals? What's the parents' feedback? That sort of thing. So that would be like a pilot test. Is that what you're saying? Perfect. Does anyone else have something to say about pilot testing? Okay, Abigail?
As public health specialists, health diseases can and should be prevented through utilization of leading health indicator data. On page 143, leading health indicators, LHIs, are utilized by Healthy People 2030 to identify risk factors, raise awareness, and prevent the spread of disease and illness.
That's a really good one. So another Healthy People 2030. Healthy People 2030 is amazing. I get so much data from them. Use it all the time. Jolene?
Okay, writing your objectives need to be Very good. I'm sorry, I'm struggling.
That is totally fine. Just take a breath. You can start over.
It's just been a long one.
Yeah.
Writing your objectives need to be very concise. Take the time to do a step-by-step, time-oriented and measurable plan so that the priority population gets the change they need in a timely manner with a favorable outcome. And then from page 138, objectives are an action-oriented statement. Use verbs that are measurable and observable, answering the question of who, what, when, where, and how.
Perfect. And just like Joshua, your actual summary of that sounded like the textbook too. So really good job on that. And I think it was Emma, you were the one who was talking about SMART objectives.
That was me.
Oh, that was, sorry. I was getting confused. Those are all really good quotes and topics. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into what do I need to do before Monday / know before Monday / look ahead before Monday. So to read and watch, read chapter 7, and then read your personalized feedback for the chapter 6 discussion. I haven't graded them yet, but when I do, if everyone has if you've at least attempted the new format, you will get 100% even if you have errors, but I will be leaving personalized feedback. So don't just say, I got 100%, I did it perfect, and then do the same thing for the chapter 7 discussion, because then you will not be so pleased. And to do the chapter 6 quiz, I published it right before this class started. It's a little bit of a shorter quiz. And then the chapter 7 discussion is due on Monday. Looking ahead, look over assignment 2 guidelines and example. So the assignment 2 is due the 13th of October. The next Wednesday, we're going to have another writing workshop day based on things that were commonly missed in people's essays that I graded last night. So half the class, I'm going to be talking about things that were commonly missed. And then the other half of the class is going to be an in-class work day. So you can work on your assignment 2 in class, or you can work on next week's essay that is related to the writing workshop. So whatever you want to work on, and I will be drifting around answering questions and that sort of thing. The midterm is on the 7th of October. Don't come to class. I won't be here. I will be lounging on my couch watching Nightmare Before Christmas while you suffer through an exam. Well, you won't be suffering. It's going to be comprised of quizzes that you have taken. And then I also have a cute little study guide posted. So if you fill out the study guide and you review the quizzes, you are going to be A-okay. And just like the quizzes, the midterm is going to be open text, open note. It is not open ChatGPT. It is not open Grammarly, open AI. So use your own notes, your own ideas, and it's not going to be time bound. So you'll have the entire day to take it. If you want to start at 10 a.m. and you don't end up finishing until 1 p.m. because you took a lunch break, that's fine. So it's going to be set up the same way as a quiz. It's just going to be longer. It's going to be a little bit more points. And there will be extra credit.
You said it's open.
Open book, open note. Yeah. So like honestly, what I would do is I would go through the quizzes, and every question that I got wrong, I would put it into like a Google Doc so I could have that there for reference. And then also for the past quizzes, I don't know if you've noticed, I put it for this past one too, but for extended responses, people who got 100% on their extended response and met the extended response requirement, I posted examples of A+ responses to those, so they can be used as a study guide too. So hopefully you feel like you have the resources you need to be successful in this midterm. Any questions about the midterm, assignment 2, the writing workshop, anything?